It's awkward timing. You know what? I'm coming to hate this seasonal anime cadence. It's just so fast and like it's so fast and like because you get the end of the season and then the beginning of the next season. It's like a 1, 2, 3 punch of like we have to do the wrap up and then we have to do like whatever episode we were planning anyway and then we have to do the sampler and it's just finding time to record all of this is honestly like the hardest part because it's just like Renu, I need to occupy another like 2 hours of your time this week.
It's chaotic.
And I gotta do it next week too. And then the week after that. And that happens every like 3 months.
Yes.
It's funny because like we switched to doing the monthly episodes, but I feel like the amount of episodes that we do is still pretty comparable to when we were doing it every other week. Like we're missing like maybe like we're missing like maybe like 2 less like every like season cycle episodes. Which I think is pretty funny.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah, seasonal just like takes up a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Atcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your wanted mushroom terrorist, Soup.
And I'm your friendly neighborhood panda sensei, Renu.
This week, AT stands for Absolute Territory because we'll be wrapping up the winter 2022 season. But before we get into that, what have you been up to?
I have been prepping for SakuraCon, which is next week. Whee!
Nice. Yeah. I saw that it was is coming up. And I saw that the cons are kind of opening back up again. I have a friend who plays D&D with us every Friday, and they have been in the con crunch, so to speak.
Yeah. This at least for SakuraCon and the other conventions that I went to last year, they had very limited acceptance so basically they had limited amount of tickets that you could buy. And I know SakuraCon's already sold out.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of interest for it, but also I think they're trying to obviously manage during the pandemic. So they're trying to limit the amount of people who can actually attend, which is good. So help keep everyone safer. Yeah, I have just been preparing for that. I got a new printer yesterday because my old one decided that it wanted to stop printing the color red, so that's always convenient.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Printers can smell fear.
Yes. Every time a convention comes around, my printer decides to have a meltdown, and it's like, all right, well, I haven't even started using you yet, and you were having a panic attack. So I got a new one. It's shiny. It's brilliant. It's an upgrade from my old one. It has like a touch screen on it, and it has like a little output tray that like moves out by itself when it's printing.
Oh my god.
I know, and it's got a scanner on it, which I didn't have before, so.
Oh, yeah. That's honestly, like, a scanner is, like, 50% of why I need a printer, and the other 50% is because, like, I'm, like, kind of an old person, and I like to read things, like, in physical form. It helps me with my, like, with my extremely messy brain, because I can, like, just, like, pick it up and look at it and, like, do whatever I'm doing on the screen. I can prop it up, so...
Yeah, I also like physical books over, like, I don't know, reading stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm like the printer advocate in my house. Everyone else is like, I don't really need a printer, I don't think. And I'm just like, no, I need a printer.
Yeah. So I like it, and it prints faster, of course, which is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our printers prints really slowly. I just like... super. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially what I've been up to, and I'm sure next time I record, I'll have a lot to tell about Sakura-con now that.
Oh yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep. What have you been up to?
Yeah. I've been up to. Oh, geez, that's a good question. Oh my god, do I even remember the last couple of weeks of my life? It's always funny. Like once we clear the like backlog of so basically we were talking about this a little bit before we actually started recording and stuff, but like episodes always like pile up during the end and beginning of seasons because all of the stuff we have to coordinate watching it every week, and then we have to make sure that we record, and then I have to take the recording and edit it and put it up, and God, it gets so messy, the seasonal stuff. We have to do the trailer watches, which I don't know what a good time to do the trailer watches ever is anymore. But it's funny because like when we do those sets of episodes, it's like a 1, 2, 3 punch, right? It's always like we get like 3 weeks of we talk to each other and we record, like, so it's like a 3-week recording like set. Mm-hmm. And then we don't talk, and then we don't like. I mean, we talk to each other obviously because we watch anime together, right? But and we play AISHITERU together. So like we, you know, we're up. We
talk weekly, yeah.
we talk like really, pretty often. But for the podcast sake, at the very least, like it's funny because we go like 1 week at a time for like 3 weeks, and then we just like don't record for like a month.
Yeah.
And we're like, what happened? Oh, geez, I don't know. I'm going, like, the thing is that everything that we talk about just kind of leaks out when we do, like, the Ace Attorney streams and stuff, because we're just like, oh, yeah, this happened to me today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It feels kind of weird to try and save things for the podcast, like, oh, I have a story I want to tell. Why don't I just say it to Soupy now versus surfing it during the podcast?
It's the eternal curse of making content. You're like, oh, I should save this. Like, why though?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a little easier for me, at least, because like I can't save anything, because if I do, I will forget it. So I might as well just say it immediately. Yeah, I can't.
Feel that.
You know?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, it's always hard for me to remember what I've been up to. I feel like I've been in a daze. You know what? That's what I've been doing. I think I've been hibernating the last 2 weeks. I've been doing that thing where I just like am not even really on my computer. I'm like sitting on the couch for like 6 hours just reading like really trashy isekai manga.
Sounds so like you.
Yeah, and like I do that for like days, and like that's just how I recover. I think because I have I wrapped up a bunch of projects, like a bunch of I was like really stressed, and like it kind of just all came back to me, and I was just like, I don't want to do anything.
I want to stop existing for a while.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's funny because like I have been as a result, right? That process is very like it's very creatively generative for me, or like regenerative, I guess, because I like have been thinking so much also about isekai like again. And it's just like
you're back in it.
Yeah, which like obviously there was a period of time when I would just bring it up constantly. I would talk about isekai constantly, right? And I feel like the more that I read isekai, the more I kind of like, the more I discover about it. Like, I realize that what draws me to isekai is like I like read isekai for the same reason that people read like trashy romance novels. Like, it's so ridiculous and predictable and silly that it's like really comfortable. So like because what the general trajectory of an isekai story is going to be, like it's like it's familiar, it's comfortable, it's like a routine. So that's what I've been up to. I have been thinking a lot about isekai, and I think there has to come a certain point when I just like write all this stuff down in like one place, and just like do something with it. But who's to say? Anyway, I have read like way too much stuff in the last like 2 weeks. Like way too much stuff. And like the thing is that it's not like because I wasn't reading it right with the intention of doing anything with it. It was really nice, and I got to just like essentially turn my brain off.
Yeah.
Which I like really need sometimes. I really need to turn my brain off sometimes.
Yeah, we all need that.
But yeah, I did read. I did end up reading Fantasy Bishoujo Juniku Ojisanto, which I thought was pretty good. It was really interesting because like the chapters are really short, which is not super common for which interestingly not that common for isekai fiction. A lot of them tend to have like longer chapters in the 40 to 60 page range. But I'm pretty sure Fantasy Bishoujo is like is literally like 20 page chapters. Like I saw that there were like 120 some chapters, and I was like, oh my god, there's like so much of this. And then I went through and I read, and I was like, oh, actually, like a lot of this, actually, most of this is covered by the anime. So, yeah, I did enjoy the original art style a lot because it looks like the anime, but like there is like an interesting kind of I don't know what it is. It might be the way that the artist shades. But there's like a really like interesting physicality to the art style that is not apparent in the anime, but is you can see in the manga, but only sometimes, right? It's only like when you have like they're like Sakuga shots, right? Where, yeah. But like anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much honestly what I've been up to. Other than that, everything else is pretty inconsequential. Been doing the streams. I have been meaning to like start streaming like on my own again. But again, like I said, I just had to go through a period of really just kind of hibernating and not doing anything. I think I'm getting to the point where around to the point where I will want to start doing things again. I can feel the pull of isekai waning.
I mean, we always like after a while of like unplugging and whatnot, we kind of like start getting restless to do something again,
Yeah, I mean, God knows I can't not be doing anything, right?
All right.
Yeah, but
it'll come back around.
Nice. It was nice to only vaguely have some responsibilities for a while. Yeah. So ready to start making stuff again. Yep. I had a little vacation. Ready to start overworking myself again.
Oh my god, you gotta balance stuff.
Yeah. No, I have I've basically I am taking less work concurrently. I'm trying not to take projects on if I have something going on already. I don't want too much going on. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. Do you want to talk about some anime?
Always.
Nice. This was an interesting season because I feel like a lot of stuff the list was kind of short this season, I feel like. But a lot of the stuff that we ended up watching was like really good.
It was really good, yeah.
So it felt this is like kind of what I want, right? I want like a reasonable amount of shows that I can keep up with that are good, right? That I want to be watching and that feel like engaging to me.
Right.
I like because like I like when I have a couple things I can sink my teeth into rather than feeling like there's so much stuff out there that like I should probably be watching that like I feel like I can't keep up with all of it. I mean, maybe if I wasn't working a day job, right, I would be able to keep up with all the anime. But like, yeah, there's no way.
Right, we're at the point of preferring quality over quantity. There's no shortage of content that we could be watching, and so at this point, we have to be really choosy about what we watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like there's just been so many good shows recently. I want them to I want them to focus down a little and just have just flood the season with trash again. That's my plea to you.
Wait, why? So we have fewer shows to watch?
Yeah, so we don't have to watch it.
Oh my god.
Okay. Let's talk about Princess Connect Redive Season 2. This was interesting because it was it felt a lot more like Konosuba than Season 1 did.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And part of that has to do with some of the staff that worked on this, which were staff that worked on Konosuba, especially Season 2 of Konosuba.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, if you want some Konosuba-esque shenanigans, like Princess Connect is probably right up your alley. I will say the set pieces and the fights that they set up feel so good to watch. They fucking went nuts with the animation this season.
Yes. They really, really stepped it up. It's like if you already liked Season 1, you're going to have your mind blown in Season 2 with the animation, at least.
They went out of their way to put more animation in.
Yeah.
There's small fights, 1v1 fights, there's bigger fights, there's these kind of army kind of fights. There's ensemble fights where people are fighting each other in small groups. It's it's all of it is just more technically impressive even than last season, which was already pretty impressive. So yeah, they play with the camera a lot more, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that at least the Princess Connect team, whoever was doing the animation, I think in general the use of 3D and CG has gotten a lot better in anime, right? Even if you just kind of ignore where you see it most egregiously, which is using it to model characters, and it feels really weird and stiff in comparison to the 2D animation, right?
Yeah.
One of the advantages of 3D is that you can really play with the environment and how dynamic that can be. It's actually I watched a video about Disney movies in the 90s and 2000s, right? And they came up with the technology that would allow them to create 3D environments, and then people would draw over them for Tarzan. And if you watch it, it absolutely still holds up. It's absolutely gorgeous, right? But it's kind of like that, where people are more willing to use these really extreme camera angles and camera movements because of the integration of 3D and CG technology into anime, especially on the ground, right? Not just big bajillion dollar studio, but everybody is kind of getting more access to it, right? That kind of stuff is it's really prominent and really evident when you look at a show like this, which suddenly the spaces feel a lot more grounded.
Yeah, I'm just really impressed by how much they improved Season 2 in basically every aspect over Season 1 of this show.
Yeah, they ramped up pretty much everything.
Yeah, and it's pretty rare to kind of see that happen. Generally, I feel like the trend is that Season 2 of a show will kind of be a shadow of Season 1 in a way. Or it'll just be more of the same, But in this case, I would highly recommend watching Season 2 if you already liked Season 1, for sure.
Well, I think what's really impressive to me is like they ramped up all of the comedy, they ramped up all of the animation, they ramped up the fight scenes, and they have like this grander, more epic sense of scale, this like really weighty, punchy combat animation, which looks really good. Everything looks really impressive. But like one thing that they actually like really, really nail in season 2 is a lot of the more subtle, quiet moments.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the work of like one animator, but you can tell in moments when they want you to feel a certain way, like the really quiet character moments. The character animation is so detailed and so good about really driving home like the emotions, and like that's not something that people usually pay that much attention to, I find, right? They mostly want the writing to kind of carry that sort of emotion stuff,
right?
But like when you're able to display that kind of stuff visually, like when there's like a scene when Pecorine is like eating a rice ball, and like the like care and attention that goes into like the weightiness of like crying while like scarfing down a rice ball is like it actually like really works emotionally in a way that's like super impressive, because most people don't really bother with that kind of stuff, right? It's like they want the Sakuga moments to be like the fight scenes or whatever, but like pretty much everything is like really solid in
yeah.
2.
It could have easily been one of those shows that all of the budget and the time and the animation production was funneled into the action scenes, because it is like an action RPG type of story. But the fact that they paid such close and special attention to these little quiet moments is what really sells the emotional story that is, behind all of the action and the story in general. It's it really sells you on the emotions of the characters, because they pay a lot of attention to animating their really subtle changes in expression, and the lighting especially is so good.
Yeah. All of the technical aspects are super impressive. Like the lighting, the like compositing, even just beyond like the proficiency of the animators, you can tell like the technical staff had a lot to do with how good this show looks.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you liked season 1, or you were interested in season 1, or you like Konosuba, I would highly recommend giving this show a shot, and I would highly recommend watching season 2 and really paying attention to those like quieter emotional moments, because they're honestly some of the better ones in an anime that isn't necessarily about that, and they do it better than a lot of anime that are trying to be about like serious emotional moments. Yeah. Also, like the pacing of this season is like just a little bit weird, because like it's not bad per se, but it ends like like pretty much like halfway through the season. It feels like the season ended. Like there's like a climax, and like it feels like that was the last episode, and then they just give you like what feels like another season of anime.
It's
like
insane.
And like it's not even like bad, right? It's not like badly paced like the last season of Promised Neverland was, where they crammed like 180 chapters into like 12 episodes, and you're like, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah, it feels like for Princess Connect they had a good amount of story that they were able to tell in a concise way for the first half of the season. And they were like, okay, let's tell the next part of the story. And so you just jump into the next part of the story.
Yeah, and then it just like fucking kind of delivers. It's good.
Yeah,
like,
it was amazing. It's a really well put together anime.
Honestly, like as far as like fantasy anime goes, like yeah, I highly recommend it. Obviously there is some I feel like there is a lot of this show that is probably enhanced by knowing the source material really well. Because, I think this is the case with any sort of gacha adaptation, but a lot of the times you're going to end up with characters that are there that show up because they're they're fan service. You can have characters that have episodes around them, like surrounding them, that like people are going to understand if they know the source material, but like it's going to be a little bit more confusing if you don't. But I think it's not too terrible. Like Princess Connect obviously stands on its own because we're speaking very highly of it, and we've never played it. But yeah, I feel like it does a good enough job, and it obviously plays those stories oftentimes for laughs, and they are funny, right? They do a really good job of conveying how comedic those moments are. Like, I think like there may have been like a little bit more they could have done in terms of building it up into a more cohesive kind of story overall. But like for what it is, I think it works pretty well, especially for how big of a gacha cast that and any Psy Games property really is gonna have. Like like that's the thing about Granblue Fantasy. It's like even for somebody who's been playing for a really long time, they'll introduce a new character, right? And there'll be a new like a brand new character that has never been mentioned before, and they'll like introduce them in the gacha pool and stuff. And after a couple cycles of that, you begin to realize that there's some characters you see and you're just like, who the fuck is this? I don't remember this character being in the game.
Right. I would say that if I were to look for something that to criticize about Princess Connect, it would be the fact that even though it's such a competent and well done show, there are some characters whom I just didn't remember from the first season who make an appearance in the second season because it's been a while since we watched the first season. And so I would say that if you haven't picked up Princess Connect yet and you decide that you want to watch both seasons or at least try them out, I would watch them in a rather short amount of time between them. Like I wouldn't wait like a whole season or whatever between one and another because you might forget some of the cast.
So that I will say that like the main cast is fleshed out pretty well.
Yes.
And after that, they are mainly relying on the primary characteristics of a cast of gacha characters, which is inherently going to be a little bit flatter than the characters that you've been developing and experiencing the story with. But I think it's at least for the main cast, they do them a lot of justice. They show a lot of the kind of conflicts and emotions that they have. I would say the only person who really doesn't get a lot of fanfare is Kokoro.
Yep, I agree.
Because she's just kind of there to vibe. And seasons 1 and 2 are really about Pecorine and Carol. Which, by the way, like there's so much. This is one of those things, right? There's so much homosexual tension between these two fucking characters, and they're just like, oh, you're like the sister I've never had, and it's like,
and it all comes crashing down.
I'm just like, I don't know what sibling like relationships are supposed to be like or how they're perceived over there, but I'm pretty sure that this is not what it looks like. I'm pretty sure that these two want to kiss each other.
It's like that one show, the other Psy Games property that we watched, where it was that girl and then the dragon girl.
Right.
Like I could see them pulling the whole, oh, you're like my best friend. You're like an older sister I never had. And it's the same vibe that they give for Pecorine and Carol. But my God,
do they play it up though? Holy, like, okay. At the very least, we did not go into this being like, oh yeah, they're like gonna kiss each other, right? Because we know that this is like, it's a gacha game adaptation. It's a Japanese anime. It doesn't have the Yuri or Shoujo Ai tag on it, right? It's not going to be that. So obviously it's not like we were disappointed, right? Because we weren't expecting it, but it was just it's just sometimes like when you see like queerbaity media, it's just like sometimes you get to a point where you just kind of laugh because of how like blatantly gay two characters are for each other, right? They're literally just like crying and holding each other and saving each other and like being inspired by each other. They would die for each other. Like literally the conflict at the end of this season is Carol being torn between two people she like really cares about, and they're both women, and she's just and then she's just like, no, I don't like this. Pecorine, save me, and she's like, I'll save you, bestie.
It's one of those things where I feel like this happens a lot, whether it's Japanese media or at Western media or whatever. It's when a story is written in such a way that they're trying to portray friendship, but they write it like a romance. And to the point that, like, there are some times where there'll be, like, a rivalry or a friendship that's center stage of the story. But then there's also a romance that the protagonist is courting on the side. And somehow the chemistry between the main lead and their rival character / friend character is a lot stronger than with the romantic lead, because they conflate the two. They don't know how to write one differently than the other, I would say. So that's how it kind of feels in this sense.
See, that's the thing, right? Is that, like, I am, like, convinced that one, straight people don't know what romance is.
What?
And two, I'm convinced that as a result they can't write it except for on accident, right? Okay, so complete tangent, absolute tangent. But I've been watching just like idly watching a lot of reality like TV shows recently because my fiance is watching them and I'm hanging out in the living room reading manga, and so I kind of like just like by osmosis absorb a lot of these shows, and then they're all like Netflix like dating shows. We watched Love is Blind, which is it's fucking wild premise for a show, because they take a bunch of people who want to be married but are single, and they basically put them into a blind dating scenario where they can't see the other person. They can only talk to each other through walls, like an opaque wall, right? And then they have to choose, and if two people choose each other at the end of, like, I don't know, it's like 2 weeks or something, then they go through a trial engagement, and then if they decide they want to be together after that, they get married. And that's the show, right? And that was kind of like, okay, all right. But then we started watching this other reality TV show hosted by the same people. I don't remember what they're like some celebrities or something. They're married or whatever. I don't care. Called oh shoot, what is it called? Oh, I don't remember. But it's the premise is maybe it's called The Ultimatum. Is that what it's called? So the premise of that show is that there are a bunch of people who are dating each other, like they're couples, right? And they come onto this show because one of them has dragged their partner onto the show because they've given them an ultimatum, right? And oftentimes it's like, we want to be in a relationship with each other, but there's just some stuff we can't agree on, and as a result, we're having trouble like moving into the engagement stage of our relationship or whatever, right? And that show was fucking bonkers. Because what happens is after once they all come onto the show, they all get broken up, and they essentially just mingle with each other, and they find somebody else to essentially go through a mock marriage with for like 2 weeks, and then they do a mock marriage with their original partner, right, the person that they were dating before they came out of the show, and they basically A/B test it to see if they can resolve their issues or whatever. And the show is so unhinged. And the shit that comes out of these people's mouths, I'm like, none of you know what romance is, and none of you know what being in a relationship is supposed to be like. You're all damaged people. I'm so afraid for you.
Well, I think a lot of what it is that a lot of these weird romantic stereotypes that don't necessarily translate to romance are perpetuated, and then therefore that's why a lot of these kind of poorly written romances are perpetuated out into, I mean, particularly straight media, right? Because that's the most popular avenue. And it's such a shame because I feel like there is obviously like a ton of people who can write competent romances, but they're not picked up for these kinds of shows or whatnot, because
right, yeah.
they don't hit the flags for all the entertaining factors that
I think
is in popular television or whatnot.
a large part of it, yeah, I think has to just do with just the fact that like it feels like it's funny because like on one hand it feels like romance is kind of like looked upon as this kind of side thing that just exists, and it's not really treated seriously.
Right.
It feels like it is there just because it has to be, which I think is what leads to having romances in non-romance media that feel really flat and boring and bad.
Yes.
And then like they're juxtaposed with like the characters that are actually like written to be like interacting with each other and like engaging with each other.
Yep.
And that dynamic is always inherently going to be more interesting and more compelling and more engaging. And you're like, why would you ever date this person? You're obviously in love with this person because like,
right.
Like the thing is, like, if you spend every waking day of your life and every hour of that time thinking about somebody else, like it's a little bit romantic, like just a little bit. Like there's something there in like kind of a gay way, like, which isn't to say that I think it is impossible to write stories about friendship that are very deep and go beyond,
of course,
what we kind of traditionally think of as like a friendship, like, because to say that would be to be like like romance is a deeper relationship than friendship, and I don't think that that's true, right?
No,
I think that
it's a different type of relationship, and I think that's where things get messed up.
I think that's the thing about that dynamic, which is like and why it's so often a sort of byproduct of queer bait media is just the fact that people are like, oh, this is what it means to be very deeply in friendship with each other,
right?
And then they're like, no, actually, wait, like that's kind of like what it like. They just do it in such a gay way. Do you know what I mean? Like accidentally creating gay media.
That's exactly what it is, though, and then that's what I think we're both trying to say is that they accidentally write these characters who are meant to be friends romantically because they want to show the depth of their relationship, but the only way that they are conveying that depth is through a very romantic lens.
yeah I mean that must be it just must be that like people just can't conceptualize of friendship in a deeper way that doesn't involve these like romantic feelings, because I think it's really possible, right? And it's funny because like, we're about to talk about Ranking of Kings, and I think Ranking of Kings does a really great job of showing like a super deep friendship between two characters without it having romantic connotations, right? Like the relationship between Boji and Kage is like really deep and really important and has absolutely zero romantic implications. One, because they're children. But like, which isn't to say that like children can't have like romantic implications. God knows so much like media is like, I'm gonna marry you when I grow up and we're childhood friends. And then like 12 years later, it's like, do you remember that promise we made when we were in the 5th grade? I'm like, no, why? But yeah, I distinctly think it is possible, and I think there are shows where that is the case, and it's just so funny to me whenever we just get like two girls who are supposed to be friends, and it's just extremely gay. I think it has to do a little bit with the way that relationships are conceptualized in Japan. And I know this isn't like unique to Japan. Obviously, like queerbait media exists everywhere, and God knows we have like a lot of Western shows with a lot of queerbaiting. But I think what's funny is that Western queerbaiting tends to be about two men. Whereas Japanese queerbaiting is generally about two women, right? Or in the case of sports anime, it's about two teams of boys that really just want to kind of get in there. But I feel like there must be an element of like the shoujo-esque classification in Japan, and the amount of like relating to each other that is appropriate in for women in Japanese society that is maybe similar to the way that we kind of conceptualize of things here, but not necessarily the same. I think like, and this is this is such a long tangent, but like I think it has something to do with the kind of social expectations of men and women, right? There is really only a couple of situations in which it is okay for men to be intimate with each other, and like being romantically involved with each other is not even one of them in the West. Like we still look down upon that as like, you know, like, oh, nasty, right? But because of like homophobia, right? We have a society in which it is not okay for men to be vulnerable with each other. We have a society in which it is not okay for men to touch each other, because any touching is like perceived in the kind of romantic sexual way, right? You got to be 5 feet apart in the hot tub because you're not gay,
or you
right?
punch each other because that's not,
or you punch each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's like that's the thing, right? Is that the couple of situations in which it's okay to be touching people and to be working with people and to be vulnerable with and working with other guys is sports and combat, right? So like,
you shake hands.
Right? But that, I mean, it's not like an intimate thing though. Like
no, it's not.
Which is, I think, why sports anime resonates as being very distinctly gay, and then also why the brotherhood of the combat comrade in arms kind of thing is so popular, right? Like part of why military fiction is so popular in the West is because it's like kind of one of the only ways in which it is okay for men to express love and validation for each other is when they're facing an external enemy and they need to work together, right?
Right.
So, and then obviously, it's very different for women, right? It is kind of both in Japan and the West, it is kind of expected almost to a point that women will find very deep bonds with each other.
Right.
Right. And to us, that registers as gay because you're just like, you guys, you're like literally kissing each other on the mouth right now. You have
there's a lot of skinship.
Like, you are devoting yourselves to each other. You are saying you would die for each other. You're like ogling each other in the bath. Like what? Like
that's what always kills
me. How am I supposed to like? And apparently, this is like not even like that weird. Like, you know, we kind of thought of it as like it's just like a thing that guys like made up to be like, oh, sexy ladies. But apparently, like because of, you know, this sort of societal expectation in Japan, it's like kind of real to a certain extent, which is like just bonkers to me. It's such mind-boggling.
I've always thought that it wasn't real until I learned otherwise, right? Because like if you think about a friendship you got with your homies, right? You don't ogle each other in the bath, whether you're a girl or a guy.
Yo, homie, your junk is looking pretty poggers today. Oh God, yeah. So anyway, Princess Connect Redive Season 2 is really gay, but they're not gonna kiss each other, and you just kind of have to come to terms with it. But like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, like it's really gay. Like if you're okay with that love never being consummated or made explicit in any way,
no one is okay with that.
You could get a little bit out of this. I'm telling you.
It's still a good show.
Yeah. So anyway, after that rant, let's
another one.
Immediately dive into another rant, which is Ranking of Kings, second core. So it continued from last season, and for the most part, Ranking of Kings was really good. Everything that we talked about last wrap up is absolutely still true. The characters have a lot of interiority and complexity to them. They're written and motivated by their own wants and desires, and they have their own goals, and they move along in accordance with those things. And so it feels very cohesive. The animation is really good. there are some really great sequences, especially when and obviously spoilers because we're wrapping up then we're talking about all this stuff, right? Especially when Boji is fighting with his dad. But
that's the climax. Animation wise,
yeah,
I mean, story
absolutely.
wise too, of course, but
it's beautiful because it is both a literal fight and kind of a conceptual one, and you see so much of what goes on in these characters' minds and how they view each other, and like how it goes, and like it's just stunning. It's stunning. It's really, 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 really amazing to watch. And pretty much almost everything else is like, really satisfying. It ends, and it ends really great, sort of. But there's just like two things, right? So
I would say there's one thing.
There's like
that
one thing
spawns a bunch of things.
Right. So it's like there's like two big sticking points in this show, like that just kind of drag the whole thing down, which is sucks.
So unfortunate
because like the rest of the show is so good and we love it.
Yes.
But there's just one problem, and her name is Miranjo, right?
Yeah, it has a name. It's Miranjo.
So like, I think Miranjo is fine as a villain, right? I think she's
a great
written.
villain. Yeah.
She has her own desires. They don't necessarily always conflict with the desires of Boji and crew, right? So sometimes she even works with them. Sometimes their goals align, and that feels very interesting and complex and nuanced.
Yes.
But then there's just there's one weird inconsistent thing in this show, like just one really striking thing, which is that like this is a show where anybody and everybody can become a better version of themselves, right? They can be forgiven from their past sins, or if not forgiven, work to ameliorate them in some way. They can work to become better versions of themselves, even if you don't have the strength of a giant that you were promised as a birthright. There is still a way for you to achieve a form of strength, right?
Right.
And that's what
even
Boji
Miranjo,
does. Right?
The villain.
Even Miranjo, the villain, right? Except for some reason, there is an entire country of people who are irredeemably bad from the outset. At their core, they're just evil, right? And they're just bad people, and that's it, right? There's no complexity. It's just they're bad people, and they've always been bad, and they always will be bad. And that's a problem because the nation of Yakuza, right? When you look at the pre Magic Society revolution, they live in like these straw huts, which look a little bit concerningly like what pre-colonial Korean buildings looked like, right?
A little too concerningly close.
So then there's like you're watching like a really inspiring piece of media about a boy overcoming the odds to find and achieve true strength in order to protect the ones that he loves, and he's a nice, well-natured boy. He wants to save even the people who are out to do harm to him, right? And then you have this weird current where there is an entire an entire country of people who not only are evil, they're also ungrateful for all of the magic and civilization in hospitals that they were given by the good, technologically advanced magic people.
By the good magic people who came in uninvited to try and ally with them against another enemy, right? Because the magic people are going against the gods in a little rebellion type of situation. And so they come to this other kingdom called Gyakuza, which is, of course, sounds very similar to Yakuza.
Right, exactly.
To try and get their help as allies in this war against the gods. They're hoping that Gyakuza will side with them and fight against the gods with them. But in exchange, Homa, the magic civilization, or the magic kingdom, they decide that they're going to try and improve the lives of the Gyakuzan citizens, I guess, by giving them a bunch of like infrastructure and just lots of like great prosperous things, essentially, to raise up this suffering kingdom, the suffering poor kingdom that's filled with bad people who only know how to be bad. They were born bad. That's all. They'll always be bad. But we're going to try and raise them up and get their help in exchange. And
so yeah,
boy, does it end well.
So you'll have to excuse me if you can see where I'm going with this, but oops, we did a colonialism.
Wow, how about that?
God, it's so frustrating because it's so incongruent with the rest of the show, and like apparently this was the case in the manga as well, and people were worried about it when the show started being animated. I had no idea that this was like an aspect of the show, but like even people who didn't know that the that those kind of parallels existed, that I've talked to about this, right, have been like, yeah, I did think that was like a little bit weird, right? Because it doesn't feel like it fits with the show, where it's like, yes, these are people who have been hurt, who are trying to overcome that hurt to become better people. Except for this entire country of people, they're all evil, and they've only known evil, and they'll only know evil. Apparently, in the manga, the citizens of Yakuza, after they've betrayed Homa or whatever, go to the like god. Right, and they're like, oh, boo-hoo, we were colonized, etc. And then the fucking evil god goes, but you accepted their hospitals, didn't you? And it like, to me reeks of like, and yet you live in a society. It's like, shut the fuck up.
And it doesn't even end there. It doesn't even end there because Bose comes later and he sees what these people have done to Miranjo and her mother, and he annihilates every single Gyakuzan citizen.
Oops, we did a genocide.
Oh no, a colonialism and a genocide in one show.
It's so weird.
It comes out of nowhere. They compress it into basically 2 episodes, if I recall correctly. And there's such a huge tonal shift from the rest of the show.
It's like, it's so unnecessary because like it feels like it would have been so easy to just at any stage of this do something else and escape the kind of like really terrible implications that you're putting forward with this. Like, why is there a colonialism in my like shonen anime all of a sudden? What is going on? Right? It's about like, this is a show about like love and empathy and like forgiving each other. Like, God, fucking. So that's the other problem, right? Is that Miranjo gets forgiven at the end of everything.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that because all of this stuff was basically just a plot element, just like a little tool that the author used to try and give you sympathy for Miranjo, is to make you feel bad for her. And that's what the show forces you to do for this entire, I want to say latter half of the second season, is to try to make you feel bad for Miranjo, and not only just you. It forces Daida, it forces Boji, it forces people in the show to watch her backstory and feel bad for her. And by the end, that's what causes them to forgive her.
Yep.
It's not any action that she did.
It's such a one of those like, I'm a bad guy because I did bad things and therefore I should be forgiven, which is like bad villain writing 101, right?
But it's also like the so there are moments, of course, they try to portray Miranjo's duality. There's no doubt about that. They show multiple moments in the show where she's wavering in her cause, right? She knows what she's dedicated to, which is to try and relive those days where she was able to be at Bose's side, to go adventuring. She loved that. She wants that again for the both of them, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. However, there's a lot of sacrifices to be made in the process, and she's set up a lot of elements in order to have that be a thing. For example, she set up the marriage between Bose and Healing so that he would have another son to sacrifice so that he would be able to regain his body again. And and so she's done so many horrible things throughout the show, including getting Boji's mother killed. Only in the end does she start actually actually committing to a few actions that try and redeem herself. Like, she tries and heals the party after their big old fight with Oken and whatnot. And I think that's it. I can't think of another thing that she actually does that is good during the show other than be pitiful. And of course, like, you guys listening right now are free to, like, chime in and tell me, but that's the impression that I get having watched both seasons. And by the end, not only do Boji and Daida forgive her, Daida forgives her for shoving him into a void that he could very well not have gotten out of. had the rest of the cast not done something, and had they not gotten Bose out of there, essentially, and let Daida have his body back. He prevents the rest of the characters from lashing out at Miranjo for what she did. He proposes to Miranjo. He tells her that he wants her to be his wife, and he looks at everyone else and he says, "You are not to lay a hand on her." She is absolved from taking any kind of responsibility for all of her actions. She got Queen Sheena killed. She almost got Queen Healing killed twice. She let Oken out of his prison, and he's like one of the scariest characters in the entire show.
My God. Oh, what a freak. Yeah, it's there's like so much to unpack also, because like one, Boji is like, yeah, I'll forgive you, despite the fact that, like, she's the reason that you don't have any, like, strength in your body, and that your early childhood has been basically all hardship. And
right, you watched
also,
your mother die protecting you.
Literally, also, she, like, actively killed your mom while she was holding you, and that sounds I don't like. It's okay, I know you're a good boy, but Jesus Christ, you do not have to forgive this woman, right?
Right.
And
I understand him because he's supposed to be like the morally righteous, like lawful good character in the show. Like, I get him forgiving her because he's also still a child, right? And so he just wants everything to be good with everyone. But the rest of the characters are allowed to show some kind of animosity toward Miranjo, and Daida literally says, "No, you cannot." You are not allowed to have her take any kind of responsibility for her actions.
Also, it's just like a weird element for Daida to be like, I will make Miranjo my wife, because
it was so bizarre.
Because, like, the magic mirror, which is where Miranjo has been living for the last, like, 10 years, was given to Daida when he was, like, pretty small, right? And like, Miranjo's basically been guiding and, like, in a weird way, kind of like grooming Daida. So, like, there's this weird element of like he was groomed into being, like, her husband. So, like, I don't know why she's still here, right? I don't know why she's still in the narrative at all.
It feels like when she ended up having her soul basically taken by the demon because of the agreement that they made, that was the moment when her arc should have ended, because she was getting her just punishment for everything, all of the death, all of the destruction that she caused, all of the suffering that she caused for every single other character in the show, essentially. She was finally getting her comeuppance, and it was well-deserved. However, it just feels like either the writer, or I don't know, people reading the manga at the time, someone, somewhere along the way decided that she needed to still be a part of the story. And therefore, she was brought back, rather forcibly, mind you.
Yeah, it's like she doesn't even really want to be there. Like,
exactly.
she's done.
She doesn't even want to be there. She doesn't feel right being there.
Like, okay, so here's the thing, right? Is that like I'm okay with her being like saved from the demon's clutches or whatever. I'm okay with the sort of like arc of being like, well, okay, now what? Like I've hurt all of you and et cetera, right? And it just kind of feels like her narrative should have kind of ended there, at least in some way. Like, not even necessarily just being eaten by a demon, right? It's like, okay, cool, you're alive now, but we kind of don't really want anything to do with you, so you can leave. We won't chase you, but like, don't be involved with us anymore. Like, don't make her your wife.
I understand if the author had this like as their intention the entire time, right? They wanted Miranjo to be the villain. She would almost get eaten by the demon. She would come back as a good person and try to make up for what she did. If they had that as their plan, that's totally fine. I totally get that. That's very compelling. I just don't think that they set it up well at all.
It feels like such a cop-out. And like,
it feels so cheap.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
No.
It doesn't fit with the internal logic of the world for her to be forgiven by anybody, right?
No.
Like, there's a moment where like she's there and her mom and Boji's mom are like force ghost waving like, we forgive you. And it's like, no!
Yeah.
Why? Why would she forgive you at all? Like, it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
So unearned.
Like,
because it's not earned at all, because all that happened was they saw her sad past. That was all that happened.
It feels so much like we just skipped an entire arc of character development, right?
That's what
like,
I feel like too.
It feels like we're missing all of the stuff that would make those moments matter.
Mm-hmm.
It like the thing is that like, yeah, I get it, right? She had a sad backstory, you know, all that kind of stuff, but like kind of like a boohoo, you know, right?
Yeah, right.
Like to me, a villain should not be redeemed by their backstory ever, right? That to me like it just isn't really the way that like redemption stories are meant to play out. Like, not only because it doesn't make sense, it just isn't like really that satisfying at all, right? Like when you have like Prince Zuko like,
that's what I was gonna bring up.
Joining...
We are on the same page. That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Yeah. So like when you have like Zuko slowly awkwardly joining the main character, the main cast, and being like, sorry about all the times I tried to kill you guys. That wasn't very cool, huh? Wasn't very PogChamp of me. And they're rightfully very distrustful of him and being like, get the fuck out of here. Right?
Yeah, dude. There's a reason why Zuko's like entire character development across the entire show is so beloved. And to me, if the author wanted to do something similar, they needed to give the appropriate amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, it took Zuko like 4 seasons for his arc to just come around full circle, right? It's to just have like it play out so well, so satisfyingly. But then it also, like, the way that the story like methodically laid out his character from the start was that you saw his circumstances, right? He's the Fire Nation prince, and the Fire Nation's the bad guys, right? He's trying to capture the Avatar, all that stuff. But you see from the outset, even from like the very first episode that he's introduced, that he's not really like an evil guy. He's doing this thing in order to regain the good graces of his father, to regain his honor, essentially. And you very occasionally will get like a little glimpse into his past throughout the entirety of the show. But they don't lean on it as a crutch for his redemption. For the most part, he's working so hard towards his goals, and then when he finally decides that he realizes, I guess, that what he's doing isn't right and that he wants to, essentially join Team Avatar, he has to work like hell to try and gain their trust. And it feels so well deserved when he finally does, because you know that he's not a bad guy, and you know that he's been working the entirety of the show in order to get to this point, and you're rooting for him by that point, especially like when you see the little glimpses of how he could be working together with the Avatar, but because of circumstances he's unable to, like that whole like that iconic episode where he's like the blue Oni mask, and he helps the Avatar escape and they work together, but then by the end they're still enemies. But you love how cool it looked when they were working together, and you get that little glimpse that kind of foreshadows what happens later on, and it feels so good when it finally comes back around.
Yep.
But Miranjo doesn't have a single bit of that whatsoever.
No. As a certified villain liker TM, there are two things that I hate, which is one, the single redemptive sacrifice moment as a way of redeeming a character, and two, the absolute cop out, which is the oh, my backstory justifies my evilness. Yep. And it's like, I hate those two things because they're just so bad, like, because they're both they don't make any fucking sense. They're incongruent usually with the narrative of whatever piece they're in, and it's just lazy writing. It feels like you didn't put any work into it, and as a result you just kind of end up in a situation where you're left hanging. You're like, but why? Right?
Yeah.
It's like you can't just forget. I mean, okay, so like this is the thing, right? It's like yeah, yes, you can just forgive somebody, but like it doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel like good storytelling.
Mm-hmm. No.
It just feels like something is kind of happening because it feels like the entire narrative has wrapped around and been bent in such a way as to allow this character to just escape whatever consequences that they have essentially set up for themselves, right? It's reaping without sowing, or sowing without reaping, the way around.
Right. And it feels like it just feels so hypocritical as well, because Miranjo gets to be saved, but the country that betrayed her people
no. Yeah, they're all dead now. They're all in the ground.
They're extremely dead.
Don't worry, they don't exist anymore. We hated them so much we destroyed their entire civilization.
Right. Yeah, and what did Miranjo do? Oh, she only perpetuated the murder and the chaos, and
she killed a lot of people.
Yes.
So,
but she gets to be saved because she had a sad backstory.
Yeah. Weird. Okay, yeah, this show was just weird. Like it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it that's really good, and then just some of it that like doesn't make any sense.
That's what's so frustrating.
It feels like these two parts of the narrative are written by different people almost. Like
right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how to square it.
I don't either, and it leaves me at like a crossroads in terms of like whether I want to continue the show or not, which I feel horrible about, because, and the reason why I'm so bitter about the whole Miranjo situation and how her arc ended up playing out is because it drags down what is otherwise a brilliant show. For me, right, is that I love everything else outside of the show, and yet the way they mishandled the Miranjo arc so badly, it compromises the rest of the show. And yet I'm dreading, like, if I decide that I'm going to watch the rest of the show, I'm dreading the moment that I have to see her again, because I know even if that by this point she decides, you know what, from here on out I'm just going to do good things and yada yada, make up for everything that happened. It doesn't rewrite the fact that she had such a terrible setup for her character, for her redemption, rather, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know why they had to pull a colonialism and a genocide just to make this character sympathetic.
Yeah, I don't know.
This
is yeah.
So, anyway, if you guys decide that you know, the whole Miranjo thing doesn't bother you nearly as much, then I would say probably good for you. You can still enjoy the show. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to sit on this for much longer and then think about whether I want to continue it or not, because I'm that salty about it. I'm so salty. I love Bochi and Kage and all the other characters so much.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the Demon Slayer Entertainment District arc. Which, I mean, this is like what the third? This is like the third time we've been talking about Demon Slayer? Yeah, I mean, it's Demon Slayer. It's good. I always feel like this arc is a little bit on the slower end. Mostly because I think the stuff that comes after it is really interesting and the stuff that comes before it is really interesting. Like, there's some stuff I really like about the Entertainment District arc, and it was animated very beautifully by UFO Table. Like, they really don't miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the best fight scenes in the season for sure. Yeah. At least for like one-on-one like fight scenes, they're pretty intense, pretty epic. They look very pretty. You know, it's what you've come to expect from UFO Table. Yeah, they do that camera pull thing a lot. You can tell that this is kind of like a UFO Table thing that other studios are starting to crib, because like UFO Table has always had a really strong tie to their CG department. And you can tell that a lot of other anime studios are kind of incorporating that into their workflow now. But like, man, Demon Slayer loves its like twirling, panning shots. It loves its epic zooms in and out. Yeah, like,
and the real fire.
And they're real fire. Yeah, they just have some real ass fire in there. It only looks
animated
mildly
fire
out of place.
and also real fire.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been CG animated fire that looked really realistic. I'd believe that.
That's really hard to do in CG animated fire. Like 3D CG is real. Like fire is really hard to do.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they have like a bajillion dollars.
Right. I would have expected them to. I guess because up until this point they've done 2D animated fire. I thought they were just going to continue that, but they put real fire. A lot of it. I understand why, but yeah. It was just funny to see.
Actually, is it even like possible to like isolate like footage of real fire?
What do you mean?
Well, they had to layer it over the drawings. So.
Yes. Yeah. They probably. I mean, I don't know what they did specifically, but a technique that is used is to light a fire against a black background, and then you just mat out the background, and then you have the fire by itself. And
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think there is quality wise, like I think the Entertainment District arc is good. I think the story content is also pretty good. It's I think a little bit less of it's in this weird awkward transition state between the beginning of the show, which is like really about one thing, and then the end of the show, which is also kind of about a different thing, right? So it is a little slow in some places. It drags a little bit in some places. It mostly just because you spend a lot of time in Tandra's head in this season.
Yeah.
And it just kind of slows down the action a lot, which is kind of a shame, honestly, because the action is so good. But I guess they just needed to pad out the episodes or something. The opening is like super banging.
Oh,
like,
man.
Speaking of people that don't miss, Aimer just never misses. That song is like it's so like weird in a way because like there's just something about her voice and her intonation that's like really it's just really different. Because it's she is like she's kind of like a lower, huskier voice. And the like cadence of the song is also like it's not like I don't think it's in standard time, or it might be. I'm just not. I don't know enough about music, but yeah, that's good. The Entertainment District arc story about the like two siblings is like really interesting because I think it has oh god, my voice is like going. I don't know what's happening. I like the antagonists of the Entertainment District arc a lot. Obviously I like, Uzui, and I like his suite of wives. But I actually really like the dynamic between the two siblings, just because it stands in juxtaposition to Tanjiro and Nezuko, and even Tanjiro kind of like mentions this where he's like, it was like, in very close for us to be exactly like this, right? If we had both become demons, then we would have been a lot like this pair. And I like that they kind of have more of a combative relationship with each other, like a kind of troubled combative relationship. But at the end of the day, they're still siblings, and they both like care about each other and want to take care of each other. And then when they're like done being demons, he's like just trying to ship her off to heaven because like he's like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like I did all the bad stuff, right? But she decides to follow him anyway. Like I thought that was a very like good ending.
Yeah.
To the just to the story of the siblings in general. Like I think I like the antagonists of the Entertainment District arc probably some of the most, just in terms of how they interact with each other, what they mean to each other, and how they are emblematic of a similar relationship to Tanjiro and Nezuko, right? Of like an older brother having to protect their younger sister, and I thought it was interesting. I thought that was good.
Yeah, I especially liked that they pulled the focus back to Nezuko and her situation and basically things from her perspective, and kind of like spotlighting her development too as a character, because the focus in both this season and the last was almost entirely on Tanjiro. And so the fact that they kind of remind you like, hey, Nezuko's a huge part of this too, and she's able to come back in full force is like was really compelling for me.
Yeah. We've pretty much talked about Demon Slayer to death. Like we basically have to talk about it every season because they've just been pumping it out.
They've just been banging it out.
I'm interested to see the next couple arcs. The Swordsmith Village arc, I think that one lags a little bit. Like I think we're in the kind of like more standard shonen dip, because the just because like the opening of Demon Slayer is like really interesting, and they present a lot of really interesting concepts, and then there's a lot of it that's just kind of a lot more like a standard shonen, but with all the like the fat and gristle cut out. So yeah, I don't remember it being particularly too interesting. I know that when we get into like the last sort of arc, that stuff is all really, really interesting, and I like it a lot. But I'm excited for it nonetheless. I mean, I love Demon Slayer, and I loved reading the manga, and I mean, yeah, like what can you say about UFO Table except that anything that they put out is really, really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's talk about Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout, which you can also shorten to Fabiniku, but that is a certain version of the Japanese name, which I don't have on me right now. But anyway, so we talked about how this show was surprisingly good and surprisingly not like
Offensive?
a drag, right? It was like surprisingly not that offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, would maintain that is still the case. I think that the at least in the anime, the progression of the last couple episodes is like a little slow.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty funny, and it was very, very fun to have the like climax be a Jinguji just kind of listing things that he likes about Tachibana for like 5 minutes.
Because Tachibana was that was the whole conflict, was that Tachibana was upset because he's had this inferiority complex towards Jinguji, who's been like the perfect megane, like essentially like an idol at the office, right? All of the girls love him. He's so good at his job. He's reliable and proficient in everything. And Tachibana feels like he has nothing special going on for him. He's just kind of like a side character or whatever. And Jinguji, even though they're both like essentially best friends, or they've been friends since their school days, has never once complimented him for anything. And so then Jinguji, to resolve the whole thing, starts listing every single little thing that he likes about Tachibana. And Tachibana basically has a meltdown.
It really was possibly the best moment in the entire show.
Yes.
It was incredible. And I went back and looked at the manga to see what it was like, and I gotta say that the anime really, really knocks it out of the park.
Nice.
Like, there's only so much that I can like read without getting bored, but having it delivered to me by the voice actors like really pounds it home. It was so good. He goes on for like 5 minutes with everything, and it's so good.
How do they illustrate it in the manga?
It's just he's just standing there with 2 big word bubbles.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was kind of like an Ora 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 and JoJo's, where he just like goes on for pages and pages. No.
It was like a 1-page spread, which means that the anime really did a good job of making it
dynamic,
come to life and interesting to watch.
Yeah, it was really good.
I'd say in that respect, the anime is probably the superior version. I talked a little bit how the manga has like an interesting physicality to its illustrations. Yeah, in general, the anime is like really good though, and I would say that a lot of what makes the anime really good is that the main 2 voice actors are really good.
They're really good. Yes,
I think that the voice actor for Tachibana really knocks it out of the park. Like I cannot like dissociate this character and that voice anymore. It's like the casting was just perfect.
I guess when starting out, I kind of wanted a little more progression in their relationship, because the season does end with like and we continue our adventures.
Yeah.
But I think they gave us enough progression, especially with that whole like 5-minute praising, that
well they also give us after that they give us when Tachibana is charmed by
that's
Jinguji.
right. You're right. You know what? You're right.
So
I did feel satisfied by the end, even though there wasn't like a full romantic wrap up. That even though they do continue their adventures, it does still end in a satisfying way.
It obviously sets up it ends in an open-ended way so that they can go back and fill out another season if they got enough response to it. So yeah, I mean,
I hope they do. Like, I want more.
There is some progress to it, and like I said, it's like surprisingly not weird about its premise, which I was really expecting it to be, and it just kind of never really goes there. Like the closest you get is the guy, the like merchant guy who's like, oh, let me touch you, Jinguji, right? But you know, it's just kind of like it's just kind of whatever at the end of the day. It's a very funny like watch it show. Turn your brain off.
Yep.
Watch 2 bros desperately try not to fall in love with each other, and they're failing pretty miserably, I gotta say. Which is what makes it fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. Okay, all right, cool. Let's talk about. Also, just I mean, I guess one more note just before, because I have been reading a lot of isekai. It actually like basically doesn't fall into any real isekai trappings, which is
Oh, good. Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
nice. You know,
Yeah.
it is a different format. It's a lot more like Konosuba, where like the
Yeah.
joke is that it's not like not your average fantasy reincarnation story, but yeah. So let's talk about My Dress Up Darling, which I feel like for a lot of people was the like anime of the season, just in terms of like how prominently, at least culturally, it appeared. I saw
Yeah.
people talking about this show everywhere, right?
Yeah, Maureen won
Because-
over a lot
yeah.
of people.
I was gonna say Maureen was like waifu of the season in a way
Yeah.
that like I feel like we haven't seen since like ReZero's Rem.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like I get, right? Like she's like a bombastic, directed, passionate person who like really doesn't give a shit what other people think of her, and I think that's a very kind of just attractive set of qualities in general. And then also like I think there is something really refreshing about like a kind of ecchi like rom-com where the girl so obviously falls in love first and is like fawning over this guy, and it's honestly like really sweet and cute because it's not like, because like we've seen like, oh, I love this girl so much, I've been in love with her forever since we were children, etc., etc., etc. We've seen that like a million times, but like here we see two people meet each other for the first time and then get involved in an activity, and the girl like falls in love and is like very obviously infatuated, and it's cute, right? It's cute in a way that high school romance is inherently kind of cute. It's not serious at all. A lot of times it's like really played for laughs, and
Yeah.
it is funny, right?
Yeah, I do like
yeah.
it. It does, like, I do get the sense after they introduced some of the other female characters, the other, like, the two sisters and whatnot, that there is a little bit of, like, ooh, we have crushes on the main guy, too, even though he's, like, the plain dude, right? There is that anime trapping, that kind of harem, like, all the girls are in love with this plain dude because he's just himself, whatever, you know? But I will say that the way that they present this, I don't know, trope, I guess, this is point, feels refreshing in a way that
yeah
you don't necessarily get in like very formulaic types of harem anime.
Well, I think that's because there's a lot of kind of subtle stuff working under the hood in terms of Gojo's character, where he's an awkward high school boy, and it's like very upfront and open about the fact that, like, you know, he's having like perverted dreams, but like, you know, like that's what a boy in puberty is like, right? But he has actual personality traits beyond just being kind of a plain guy, right? Like he's almost like, I feel like he's almost a plain person on purpose, right? Like the fact that he's like dedicated himself to this one thing that he's wanted for forever, basically, and it's kind of made him a loner because he hasn't really felt like he could connect with other people, like his peers.
Yeah.
Because he's afraid that his the thing that he really cares about will ostracize him, right?
Right.
So,
like when he was little and the girl.
So like
called him
his
gross.
yeah, exactly. So his personality kind of boils down to being about this stuff, and the show is kind of about pulling him out of that shell and
Yes.
like making sure that he gets these new experiences and kind of grows as a person, right?
Yeah.
And I think it works really well. It feels like a central tenet of the show because you know, once they start doing the cosplay stuff, his grandpa is like, wow, like you've actually gotten a lot better at you know, making dolls, right? Probably because you've been doing all the makeup for Marin, right? And I think that's like low key really important for any creative person to branch out and experience things that are not within the scope of your creative field, right? I think that's one of the most valuable things you can do, whether you're a writer or an artist. I think one of the most important things is to go out and have experiences that are not related to writing or art that you can take and adapt and transform into art, right?
Yeah, I think it keeps things fresh, and that's probably like my number one recommendation for people who frequently say that they're suffering from art block or writer's block or whatnot, is to just let that be the case and then go do something else, and don't spend your time like sulking over the fact that you don't feel creatively inspired right now. It's okay.
Yeah.
It happens to everyone, and it's a cycle.
I get like that like constantly, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain part of me that is kind of aided by the fact that I my attention span is very limited. So it's very hard for me to stick to one project for a really long time. But as a result, I'm also just constantly experiencing like new and novel things because it makes my brain feel good. But those things in turn also like fuel the creative pursuits that I do.
Yes,
right? It's important to have that kind of balance. And I like that is kind of the point of the show, right? The fact that it's like you can dedicate yourself to your craft and you can pursue it and practice it. But at the end of the day, the things that will improve your progress and your skill at those things is being able to make time for other things, right?
I agree.
I like how studious Gojo is when he's handed like source material for a cosplay.
Oh god, it was so relatable.
Like
as an artist.
Right, exactly. Like when he gets the eroge and he's playing it and he's taking notes and he's like completely unbothered by any of the content in. His grandpa walks by and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And he's taking notes. He's taking notes.
And when he buys the manga for the other cosplay and then realizes that there's no angles really to draw this character because they're so simplified. Right, exactly. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It's such a good like showing of the creative process in these kinds of instances.
Yeah. So I think it's honestly pretty stellar in that regard. There's a lot to like. I think the directing of the show is pretty stellar. It's a lot of it is pretty subtle, but there's like a lot of just directing choices that are being made on purpose, which like that's the thing, right? Is that at the end of the day, there's a lot of shows and you can kind of tell, right? There's a lot of shows that that feel like they're being made on autopilot, right? They're being churned out for one reason or another. Usually isekai stuff, right? But it's when you have purposeful directing and you're playing with things like lighting and you're playing with things like camera angles that stuff becomes interesting and meaningful and engaging to watch, because like there's a lot of composition choices that are made in like storyboarding that make their way into the show that actually tell you something about their emotional states, right? There's that scene right at the very beginning when like when Gojo is like sitting in his like protagonist chair in the in the classroom right by the window, and it's like all kind of under shade, and there's this scene where the wind like whips the curtains up and they cover him as if he like doesn't exist, and then right after that is when he meets Maureen and he kind of starts to become recognized as like a person that exists in this world, right? And there's that scene kind of at the end in the last like somewhere in the last 2 episodes, I think, where they're walking together and they're walking in the shade, and it feels like something like really serious is gonna happen. And I don't remember exactly what the scene was, but they walk out into the sunlight after like I think Gojo says something that is like that is kind of like played for laughs, and the scene becomes much more lighthearted. They walk in the sunlight. Like it's those kinds of directing choices that like you really appreciate when you watch a show, because you're like, there was care and attention put into how this was made.
Right. I love the fact that it's not like just an ecchi show, and I feel like that's probably the general impression that the show gives, because Marin is now like an icon in the anime, I don't know, space.
Right, exactly.
But it's a lot more than just about her. It's about, like you said, Gojo and his opening up to his passion and trying to not just pursue his dream, but also embrace, I don't know, making friends with other people, connecting with other people and their passions, and how that kind of motivates him to be creatively inspired too. I love that it's about creativity in general and pursuing something along those lines, and it feels like a show that was crafted very carefully to balance all of these elements really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some it feels like, especially with the ecchi segments, it feels like there are some like generally older anime sensibilities, but they're weaved in a way that isn't like so out there. It doesn't like, because like you remember the era of anime when ecchi was king, right?
Yes.
And every show had to be so ecchi all the time.
Yeah.
But like here, it's like the ecchi is like you know, it's meant to be a little playful, it's a little sexy, and it's just kind of funny too, right? The fact that Gojo's literally about to like explode at any given moment. He's like about to keel over dead. He's like, booba.
Yeah, it is a focus of the show, but it's not the only focus, and I appreciate that because we remember the days when harem anime was king, and that was all that the shows were about, was ecchi, and then romantic drama, and then ecchi, and then it just like went back and forth, like recycling over and over again. Well, that stuff.
Especially also because like there's an element of like in those days, a lot of that was like the kind of like lucky pervert sort of trope, whereas it feels very kind of purposeful and more about how more just about how like kind of airheaded Marin is about that kind of stuff, and how much like Gojo is so hyper conscious of it that he's like right. It is funny, right? And it feels refreshing in a way, because it there's a lot of elements of it that are new and a lot of elements that are old, and they're being blended in this like really interesting way. And like, yeah, it's just really good for what it is. And that is sometimes all you can really ask for. I really liked the source material. I've read the manga, and I would say that the anime does a really great job of bringing it to the screen. It feels interesting to watch, and it's pretty fun. Also, like, the voice cast is really good as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about probably, honestly, no joke, probably my anime of the season, Sabikui Bisco.
What an unexpected anime.
Okay, so like I didn't really know what I would be getting into, because
no one knew.
This show like really doesn't do a good job of telling you what it's about.
No.
And even when you watch the first like couple episodes, you're not really sure what the fuck is going on.
No.
Because for some reason they have presented the first 2 episodes to you in an achronological format.
Yeah,
which,
it's terrible.
Like, okay. It's one thing if you're doing that for narrative purposes, right?
Yeah.
Like if you did that as like a flashback or something, right? In order to have to build up tension or whatever, like that's fine. It's fine if you have something like not Barakamon. That's what we were talking about earlier. The other B anime
Bakuman?
that we. No, the other one, the one that we did an episode on, the train heist one. What was that called? Shit. It's the one where you get all the stories intertwining. It's not Bacchus. It's
Oh, shoot.
Oh no.
You better cut all of this out.
Bakano.
Bakano.
Yes. Okay. All right. Did you know that they're based on light novels called the Grand Punk Railroad? What the
What?
Okay. Anyway, so a show like Baccano uses that achronological format in order to build its narrative.
Yes.
Sabikui Bisco doesn't really do that. It just
No.
kind of feels like it's just like kind of chopped up and served to you like a cheesesteak, right? But like after you get past the first like 2 episodes, this show really like comes into its own
Yes.
and feels cohesive and like you actually are watching something interesting. Like the first couple episodes of Sabikui Bisco are really slow, even though there's a lot of really batshit stuff happening. Like there are mushroom terrorists. The Japan, the world has ended because of a rust epidemic, which is what happens when everything rusts, but also people are rusting. So there's a rusting disease, and people think that mushrooms spread the rust, but actually mushrooms eat the rust. So they're the victim of a smear campaign. But after that, everything is really interesting because it becomes this like duo adventure journey kind of story, which is really cool. And then in the last like quarter, it becomes this like really sick like revenge story. Sort of. It's fucking bonkers. But yeah, I don't know. This show felt, like I said, it kind of feels like it has some of those like older school sensibilities. It just in terms of like the way that the character concepts are and how their personalities are, right? Like you have one really level-headed kind of like newbie character, and you have one like really over-the-top like skilled, rambunctious, loud guy, right? You have old sensei and all those kinds of characters, but there's just something about everything that feels like it's exciting to watch, and I think a lot of that has to do with the sort of journey / adventure premise, right? Like the way that the story is laid out.
Yeah, I feel like so you do have to get through the first few episodes to get into it, but the first few episodes are just for like that world building, but again they do tell it in such a hodgepodge way that it feels difficult to just stay with it. But it is such a I don't know, I guess it's like it's a fun story wrapped in this really wacky world. And the ending is so bombastic that you're like, this is out of control, but also still pretty in line with the show, I think. Because and yet at every turn, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Me neither. See, that's the thing, right? Is that you absolutely hit the nail on the head, right? Where it is an adventure story set in a really weird setting, and it actually really utilizes that weird setting in a way that makes it feel like engaging fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Like you have a bunch of like stuff that's happened since, the time that we would recognize, right? And there's all this new stuff, right? Society has basically collapsed outside of a handful of cities. There's all this like new wildlife. Obviously, stuff is like still a little bit like weird and bonkers. Like there's snail airplanes and hermit crab battalion islands and giant steel crabs. And also like fingy worms. There's just worms with lots of fingers.
That was that girl that had the whole worm thing growing.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and he had to rip it out with his teeth.
God,
I was like, oh my God. I remember
so
watching that in the trailer and I was like, what the fuck is happening?
What's happening?
But yeah, like it presents you an interesting world, and then it actually chooses to engage in that world. It shows you locations and people and how they live in that world. Like there's an entire city that is basically this like village, and it's like really interesting architecturally, and only children live there because all of the adults have basically just been like taken to like work for the governor or whatever, right? And they have to deal with a swarm of man-eating blowfish with human teeth every season, which is horrifying, right? And all the while you have like two really charming main characters with a really like great dynamic between them. They bounce off of each other so well, and they complement each other's energies. One is red, one is blue. And like there's purpose because they each have something that they want. You know, they both want to save people close to them from the rusting disease, and they have to figure out how to do that. And I really love the journey portion of this anime.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the strongest like set pieces or like pieces about settings that I've seen in a while. You know, it has the kind of like Kino no Tabi vibe where like every place is a little bit different, and a lot of it is like about figuring out, you know, what's going on in this place and seeing if you can do anything to help them. We have these little asides where we see Pau, who is Milo's older sister, and she's out and she almost gets like eaten by cannibals.
My God, dude. Horrifying. This show has so many scary moments.
It does,
but it's not a horror anime.
Like, it has a lot of really tense moments because you don't really know what's going to happen, and you before you realize that you've gotten attached to these characters, and like you care about them, and like it's just such a solid like one core anime. It like comes and you're a little bit confused at the beginning, and then it progresses over like 13 episodes, and then after it's you know you got it, like that's the whole thing. And I'm honestly really grateful because like a lot of anime these days is it's like, oh, we've set up for a season 2 in case we ever get one, and they never get one, right? Yeah. So the fact that we got just like a one core anime that like comes and does what it wants to do and then just fucking leaves is like kind of great. Yeah, this show is so bonkers. Like, I cannot overstate just how bonkers this show is, right? Like, even aside from the really out there setting, which I love, by the way. It's so weird. I love it.
Yeah.
There are snail airplanes and mushrooms just fucking everywhere. You can fire an arrow and the mushrooms will sprout instantly. Yeah. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, there's just like, it's just so over the top, right? Like, the final confrontation, or the final couple episodes, is a confrontation between Milo and then later Bisco and the governor, who is an ex-mushroom keeper who manipulated the media to essentially make people believe that mushrooms cause rust instead of eating them, right? And he did that so he could, you know, have a grasp on power for the rest of time or whatever. And then Milo just comes in and fucking rocks his shit. and then he fucks up because he doesn't fucking kill him quick enough. And so
God.
The governor's like, oh God, let me get out of here. And then they confront him again in the rust machine, and I swear to God, it's the rawest thing I've ever seen in my goddamn life, because Bisco is fighting the governor, right? And he's literally just like he's rusting, right? So his body is like turning into rust and like falling off. And he no longer has he gets shot with rust bullets, so it's progressing really fast. So he like shoots an arrow and his fucking fingers fall off.
Yes,
he can't shoot
fingers
he
fall
can't
off.
use his bow anymore. So what does he do? He fucking runs up and he punches him with his arm, and then his arm is so rusted it falls. This man punches a man so hard, his arm doesn't exist anymore, right? And then after that, he's like, what are you gonna do now? You don't have any limbs. And he fucking like takes him out by like knocking him into the lava, and they both fall into the lava together. And the most homosexual moment that has ever been displayed on television happens, because Milo shows up and Bisco is like, he's like slowly sinking into the death rust lava, and he's like, I don't want to rust to death. I want you to kill me, because if you kill me with your own hands, then I'll always be with you in your heart. And so okay. So you know how like there's a couple of tropes that I like really am a sucker for?
Yes.
One of the tropes is if I have to die, let it be by your hand. It's so fucking sexy. I cannot like overstate like how gay it is for him to be dying, and for Bisco to be like, I want to die by your hands, and Milo is like, okay, and shoots him in the heart, and then literally immediately as he's sinking into the lava, Milo says, I love you. Literally, he says AISHITERU, which is like not even ambiguous. No! It's literally just like, I love you. And oh my god.
I've seen people, like, I was reading discussion about this episode. I've seen people try and justify it. Like, oh, like, you could say I love you to, like, your friends or whatever, but AISHITERU isn't used that way. You have to understand the context behind it, in that this phrase isn't even said between married couples. That's how, like, deeply emotional it is. I think I would say it's occasionally used between like biological family members if it's like that much of like a moment or like a thing, right? Like you really want to convey how deeply you love these people, but it's not used between friends. And it's rarely used even between couples because it's so embarrassing.
Yeah. This is like high cringe levels of thing that you are saying.
Right. And so Milo saying it to Bisco when they're not related, they're not in a romantic relationship either, but there have been like little hints dropped every now and then throughout the show about how Milo really fancies Bisco, and like Bisco makes him blush and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of blush you moments, and there's a lot of moments where he's like, I think you would really get along with my sister, and it was kind of confusing to watch those moments, but I'm beginning to think that a lot of that was like kind of deflection, being like, oh, wouldn't you like to be in a relationship with a Neko Yanagi?
Yeah.
Nobody says it has to be either, and like the amount of like times that they like. They run away together, and then they're living in like a trailer together for a bit, and and like there's so many times where one of them is just like critically injured, and the other is like lovingly taking care of them in such a tender way, like
we talked earlier in this episode of the podcast about how Princess Connect has the bond between Pickery and Kyago, and how that could be very easily interpreted in terms of like a romantic lens. But these two, Bisco and Milo said AISHITERU.
This is an explicit love, right? Like this is not your average queer baiting.
I can't remember the last time I heard AISHITERU in any show. Like I can't recall.
Like it is it's pretty serious, and like literally he says this after Bisco is like I'll always be in your heart.
Yeah, and he literally and then Milo literally shot him in the heart with the arrow.
Right? I was like, oh my god. And like the thing is that before they when they separate so that Bisco can come kill the governor, right? He's taking care of Milo, and like Milo is like really, really injured, and he's just like holding his hand, and he's just like, Bisco, please don't go, please continue holding my hand, and then Milo like falls asleep, and he's just like, yeah, I will, and then he goes just to fucking kill the governor, and like, oh, and then. And we were so mad about this. We were so mad when this happened because it ends on that cliffhanger, and we're like, "What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?" You can't like make this couple like explicitly love each other and then kill them in the same breath, and then
wait,
he comes back to life. Like he literally hears Milo like what happens is both the governor and Bisco get like assimilated into this like rust monster that they call the Tetsujin, which just means Iron Man, which is really funny. And it's like it's obviously this like man-made weapon of destruction that ended up causing the end of the world. There's a lot we can unpack there. But the governor kind of takes control from inside the creature and becomes one with the creature. And then you're like, oh, that's not very fair, is it? But then like Milo's like saying some stuff, and he's just like, man, I wish I was like, you were always with me, Bisco. And Bisco literally shows up. He's like, I heard you calling for me, and here I am, literally back from the dead. And you're like, oh my god. Like, their bond was so strong that he literally came back from the dead to save you.
So the final conflict, they have their final battle, it resolves, right? And then in the end, Pau comes in, and then she makes her move, right? She's the one that gets to have the smooch, right? She smooches Bisco. She does it in a very like I'm the boss kind of way too, which was awesome. But then and so then at that point you're like, okay, are we back to the heterosexual relationship? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So Milo and Bisco are off by themselves somewhere, and then Pau is like, I'll leave them alone. Like, if I were to intervene right now, Milo would kill me. A sibling just knows.
He would never forgive me. Yeah. And literally, they cut over there, and they're having a conversation, and they're just like, kind of like, they're just kind of like laying in each other's laps and stuff.
No, the sun is setting. They're watching the sun setting. And then Milo puts his head in Bisco's lap.
Like, literally, yeah.
And he says like that's comforting that he can hear Bisco's heartbeat again, like that.
Like, bro. I think this is about the closest, or not even closest. I think this is the most you can do to display like a romantic relationship without having them explicitly like kiss or anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even negotiable. Like, you can't just say, oh, they're homies. You can't just say like, oh, they're like really good friends, or like they're like they are soulmates, right? This is like when you have the Untamed and like all of the adaptations, they try to like censor out all the gay stuff, but they're like literally soulmates, right? so no matter what happens, it's still extremely explicitly gay because it was kind of written that way. That's what I feel like about this. It's like they've done everything to express, like, I almost think on purpose, right? I think it has to be on purpose, right? That they love each other in a very deep way, and it's fine if that's it's fine if it's a way where it's like they love each other in such a deep way that it's like not definable, right? It's not like they're siblings, it's not like they're friends, it's not even like they're lovers. They just have a really like powerful connection to each other. But like, man, they literally have a scene in the climax of the entire show is like Milo and Bisco shooting a bow together, holding hands.
Yeah, I forgot.
And then Bisco is just like, I trust you to be my eyes. And like, I couldn't write anything more romantic than that if I tried. I could have like two people just absolutely on a soul level, on a cellular level, like devoted to each other, and like, you know, you can have them kiss, you can have them express like things, and like give each other gifts or whatever, right? Express love for each other, and like, it just wouldn't hold a candle to what the fuck I just watched. It's like, this is it. This is the gayest piece of media I've ever seen in my life. And I've read stuff where like guys are fucking each other in the butt. Like, come on. What? Sucking your homie's dick is less gay than this. I'm sorry, it's true.
It's a great show.
This show fucking rules. This show fucks.
If you just want to have a bump, like a really wild ride of a show, this is it, man. You don't know what's gonna happen at every turn of the story. It has so many unexpected moments, but it's all tethered together by this bond between these two people that is pretty strongly implied to be really romantic.
Listen, they have a bond that transcends romance.
Yeah, that's exactly
Like,
how
literally.
deep it seems.
These two people are soul bonded for
They soul
all of
bonded.
eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, we're talking about how Bisco's soul went into Milo's body because Milo started acting like him after Bisco died.
Yeah.
Like even
Oh my God.
the old sensei guy who was like a father to Bisco was like, "Oh, Bisco's not really dead because he's in Milo."
Yeah, exactly. And then he's fucking alive still. He just comes back from
Yeah.
the dead,
Yeah.
actually and literally. And like that moment happened, and we were like, "What the fuck?" This is like definitely one of those like, "Oh, his spirit is with me" moments. No, he's there. He's alive in the flesh.
actually
He came back just so he could hold your hand and kill this guy that you both hate. Like, oh my god! Holy shit! Oh my god! This show is great. I love this show.
It's
Also, just a small aside, but I really love the ending theme of this anime is really, really good. It's sung by the two voice actors.
yeah.
And after Bisco dies, they make Milo's voice actor sing it alone, and that hits different.
It's so we were like, we were both simultaneous, like, wait
It's
a
like,
minute.
wait,
while the ending was
wait a
playing.
minute. Bro, that's not okay.
It was so not okay.
I don't remember the last time I was so distraught after an episode of anime. Like, that fucked me up. I was like, oh my god, Bisco! Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to like this show as much as I did, but
Yeah.
it's really good. It's very entertaining. It's very charming. It presents to you this extremely wacky world. It's it feels a lot like there's like I think it's the Wasteland series of games where it just presents to you like this post-apocalypse where everything's like really wild and over the top. It feels kind of Mad Maxy in that way, actually. But yeah, I like the setting, love the characters. My God, I've never seen two characters more in love with each other. Holy fuck. Oh my God. But yeah, that's my pick of the season. That's Sabikui Bisco. I recommend you watch it.
If you could get,
yeah.
you gotta get past the first 3 episodes to get to the journey part of the show.
Yeah.
Just as a disclaimer. So.
Okay, well, why don't you tell me about the 2 things that you watched?
Yeah, so I'll pretty quickly summarize these 2. So there's Reman's Club, which technically still hasn't finished airing. I think the last episode is still on the way. And I've only watched, I'm only caught up to, 10 episodes. But I love it. It's actually, it is a sports anime, but they do balance the whole fact that they're also salarymen, really well.
Love it.
And the animation is so good for the badminton scenes, especially. Oh my gosh. They illustrate all the details really well. The hits feel like swift but powerful, you know. And the story I like as well. It's not like a super over the top like emotional story or whatever. It's about, you know, adjusting to company life, but also playing a sport, essentially. And so it has aspects of both, like a sports anime and also like office work life. So it's pretty charming in that respect. And they have like lots of little tiny humorous moments too, which are cute, and they add like charm to the characters. Like one of the characters is like, he like has like essentially he comes back from almost getting fired by the company. And so the rest of the team is like, oh, well, since you're back, you should treat us to stuff, right? And then the main character, who is pretty like, he's like the Kageyama type, where he's very like focused on the sport. Otherwise, he's pretty withdrawn, you know, socially anyway. He just very quietly thinks to himself, I want 100 gacha pools as my reward for you coming back. And it just comes out of nowhere. It just, the show every now and then just has little moments like that where it you know, defines and characterizes the sports team, or the sports members, and it just brings up its own little charm. So I like it a lot. I'm excited to finish the anime. And then lastly, I watched Saiyuki Reload Zeroin, which is I'm still like shell shocked that we got more Saiyuki in 2022.
Yeah, it's been a weird decade for like all of a sudden revivals, huh?
Yeah, really, really strange, but I liked it a lot. It wasn't like as budget cut-y as like Orphan, for example, when we were watching that.
Oh my god.
The art style in this one was actually good. They were pretty faithful to the manga artist, but also like made the art like really colorful and poppy. The story itself was good. It like plays up some of like one of the characters who's up until this point been like a pretty like in the shadows mysterious guy, but now he finally confronts the main party. It introduces some compelling new characters, which is fun because for the most part the show is about the main four cast, right? The Sanzo party. So the fact that they introduced some pretty like big central characters into the story is a pretty big move on the story's part, which is mostly about like the journey to the west vibes. And
nice,
yeah,
nice.
I'm really hoping that they do more. I want more Saiyuki.
Listen, we can only hope.
I've been keeping up with the series like on and off since like high school, and they're still going, and it's like, well,
Jesus
if you're still
Christ.
going, please animate more.
Yeah, I feel like the last couple years has been really weird for like sudden sequels to anime that you thought like wouldn't get any more content ever, like Saiyuki and Full Metal Panic.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
We got news that like there was a new Haruhi novel being released.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird
it's crazy.
decade.
Yeah, let's go.
I agree. Let's go.
Yeah. That's it.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I don't have anything more to say about the season. I feel like it has been a little while since we've had a big long episode with a lot to say, and that may have something to do with all of the time that I took off to rest my brain.
Well, we also, I would say this season, even though we only had like a handful of things that we decided to keep up with, the handful of things that we did keep up with, especially like Princess Connect, Ranking of Kings, Demon Slayer, and My Dress Up Darling were like so well animated, like mind-blowingly well animated. It was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, anime looks too good now.
Yeah. I don't know how the next season is going to look, but you know, I'm happy with what we kept up with this time.
Yeah. I mean, there are actually a couple more shows that at least we're gonna sample than we were going to last season. But we definitely have some stuff to watch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we've watched, just to give you a little spoiler, we have watched one episode of The World of Otome Games is Tough for Mobs. One episode of Aharon-san is Indecipherable. That one was pretty cute and funny. And one episode of Your Boy Kongming, which
oh my god, I can't wait to talk about that show.
Chef's fucking kiss. That show bangs. I love that show. That show is so fucking funny. But yeah, we'll be back soon to talk about the spring 2022 season. So definitely be on the lookout for that. That'll come out whenever it's ready. Which, I mean, God. Always, it's like I'm like I have like cycles of like have to record a lot of podcasts, have to do a lot of other work, have to record a lot of podcasts, have to do a lot of other work. Seasonal stuff is hard to keep up with. Oh, let me tell you.
Yep.
But yeah, so I guess keep on the lookout for that, and we're gonna wrap up here now.
Yeah.
So, who are you? Where can we find you on the internet?
I am Renu, also known as Swan. You can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr, Facebook, Twitch, all that at swandrawn. I will not be streaming next weekend because I will be at SakuraCon. So if you guys are in the Seattle area, please, and you got a ticket at SakuraCon because it's sold out, please drop by our table.
Yeah.
I would love to meet you. Yep. What about you?
Nice. You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. I have been not doing as much streaming as I wanted to be doing, but I will probably get back to it soon. I really want to continue playing Pokemon Legends of Arceus, and I want to continue. I want to finish Yakuza 3.
Let's go.
I think I'm like maybe 2/3 through the game, maybe. But I had to drop it a little while ago just because we had to go through some just like changes in terms of like, you know, I moved out of my parents' house and all that kind of stuff, and the normal crew that we have had accrued, we all have different schedules now, so it's hard to get everyone together. But anyway, yeah, I would love to I'd love to get that back rolling. I think probably it's most likely that you'll see that sometime at the like mid-June, I would say. But I really want to, I do really want to get back and finish it.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, you know, you can find me on my weekly streams. The Saturday one where I do Ace Attorney with Renu, and then the Sunday one where I rank D&D to subclasses. We do a tier list, and that's pretty fun. We just finished Paladins, and we're about to do Rangers, and hopefully that's pretty, that goes pretty well.
Yeah.
I think it probably will not be this week, which I guess is today, if the episode goes out on time. No promises. Yeah, what is even the point of talking about scheduling stuff? It doesn't matter. This episode's gonna come out when it comes out.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And yeah. So our opening is by Scotty Network, and our ending is by Takamakata, and the patrons we are thanking this week, month, episode. That's the word. Our schedule has gotten so weird. Anyway, the patrons we are thanking this episode are Evan Williams, backed by Mirror Test, Claire, Frostfall, Shandao, Cherubel, and Dylan Boats. Thank you so much for your contributions to our podcast. Especially because now the Funimation Crunchyroll merger has gone through. So now all of the stuff is airing on Crunchyroll, except for a couple of shows which are now on High Dive. So now I guess we have to pick up a High Dive subscription again.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, like you are sustaining the podcast with your contributions, and for that I could not be more grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the next episode is going to be the sampler. So look forward to that. After that, we have another episode planned. I guess another quote unquote proper episode, which would be any episode that's not like a seasonal episode. We do a lot of these seasonal episodes just because it's like the thing to do, right? You want to know what cool anime is airing. But yeah, we will, in that case, see you next time.
See you next time.
また明日ね。